Two eyes. I had to come here and tell them about it. Listen. Happened earlier today. Hold on. This nigga, y'all, that... Hold on, let me wait for some more people to get on here. Because y'all got to hear this story, because this is a good story.
The intersection of Lafayette Road and West 30th Street in Indianapolis exploded into chaos. A yellow Chevrolet Camaro, speeding at nearly 100 miles per hour, careened through traffic as gunshots ripped through the February air. Metal shrieked against metal as the sports car slammed into multiple vehicles, sending debris scattering across all four lanes. Inside the wreckage, 40-year-old Jane Waughfield lay bleeding from gunshot wounds, struck just moments before the catastrophic crash. 17 hours earlier, Jane had unknowingly sealed her fate by pressing Go Live on Facebook. For 17 minutes, she broadcast fatal accusations, exposing a man's sexuality, demanding $5,000 for her silence, and uttering a chillingly prophetic statement. If I die, let them people know how they killed me. Her digital footprint offers a rare, terrifying glimpse into the final hours before a murder, capturing not just her words, but her escalating fear. In an age where online actions have real-world consequences, Jane's story is a stark reminder of how quickly virtual threats can turn into physical violence. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to Lat True Crime Stories and hit that notification bell. This case explores the perilous intersection of social media, privacy, and revenge. Understanding it might help you recognize warning signs in your own online interactions or those of someone you care about. At approximately 9:30 a.m. on February 18, 2020, emergency dispatchers were flooded with calls reporting a catastrophic multi-vehicle collision. The temperature hovered just above freezing as first responders converged on the north side of Indianapolis. One veteran firefighter described the scene as among the worst I've seen in 20 years. Witnesses reported hearing 3 to 5 distinct gunshots before the yellow Camaro swerved erratically and accelerated through the intersection. It was like watching a movie, said Marcus Hendricks, who was waiting at the red light. The car was flying, had to be going 90 or more. Then I heard what sounded like firecrackers right before it hit. Police secured a perimeter, marking at least 7 bullet casings scattered across a quarter-mile stretch of road leading to the intersection. Inside the Camaro, paramedics found Jane unresponsive, suffering from at least 1 gunshot wound to her upper body. Blood-soaked glass indicated she had been shot while driving, causing her to lose control. A second victim from a struck vehicle was transported to the hospital in serious condition with non-gunshot-related injuries. 3 other drivers sustained minor injuries, creating a complex scene that required 4 ambulances and closed the busy intersection for nearly 6 hours. As investigators photographed the crash scene and interviewed witnesses, the fundamental question emerged. Who shoots a woman in broad daylight on a busy Indianapolis street? This wasn't random road rage or a stray bullet. Detective Sergeant Michael Coleman told reporters the incident appeared directed and isolated, suggesting Jane was specifically targeted. What could provoke such a public and violent attack? The answer began to surface when officers examined Jane's phone, recovered from the wreckage. Her recent social media activity revealed a disturbing timeline, from her explosive Facebook Live broadcast to frantic text messages sent in the hours before her death, indicating she believed someone was following her. Why would exposing someone's sexuality lead to murder? What transpired in the hours between Jane's broadcast and her death? And perhaps most importantly, did Jane truly grasp that her attempt at public shaming and extortion might provoke a deadly response? The digital trail she left behind would prove crucial to understanding the final, fatal chapter of her life. Jane Waughfield lived in Indianapolis for most of her adult life, though public records reveal surprisingly little about her 40 years before she became headline news. Friends described her as outspoken and unfiltered, someone who said exactly what was on her mind without worrying about consequences. She maintained a modest apartment on the city's east side and had worked various customer service jobs, though she wasn't employed at the time of her death. Those who knew Jane described a complex personality, generous with friends, but quick to anger when she felt wronged. Jane could make you laugh until you cried one minute, then get deadly serious the next, recalled a former coworker who requested anonymity. She had this intensity about her that could be both magnetic and overwhelming. Her social media presence before the incident reflected this duality. Her Facebook page featured lighthearted videos of her dancing and joking alongside passionate rants about perceived injustices. She posted frequently, averaging 3 to 4 updates daily, often filming herself in her car or apartment. Her content typically garnered modest engagement, a few dozen likes and comments from a consistent circle of online friends who enjoyed her unfiltered commentary on everyday life. Nothing in her digital footprint suggested the dramatic escalation that would occur in her final 24 hours. The day before her fatal Facebook Live broadcast, Jane's social media activity showed a typical Monday. She posted about the weather, shared a meme about relationships, and complained about slow service at a local restaurant. Nothing indicated the explosive situation brewing in her personal life. According to cell phone records later obtained by investigators, Jane exchanged several text messages with a man she had been casually dating, the same man she would later expose online. On the morning of February 18, 2020, Jane's digital footprint shows she woke early, posting a selfie at 6:15 a.m. with the caption, "Rise and grind." Security footage from a gas station on East Washington Street captured her filling her yellow Camaro at 7:22 a.m., appearing calm and checking her phone repeatedly. A receipt from the transaction shows she purchased a coffee and breakfast sandwich, suggesting no indication she anticipated the day's dramatic turn. According to her Facebook Live account, Jane realized she had left her phone at a man's house and returned to retrieve it around 8:30 a.m., what she claimed to have witnessed upon entering. Finding the man engaged in a sexual act with another male sent her into a state of shock that quickly transformed into anger. "I'm traumatized," she repeated throughout her subsequent broadcast, her hands visibly shaking as she drove away from the location. Friends who saw the live video in real time described Jane as more agitated than they'd ever seen her. One attempted to call her during the broadcast, but was sent to voicemail. Another messaged her urging caution, writing, "You need to calm down and think about what you're doing." Jane didn't respond to these attempts at intervention, instead escalating her threats as the 17-minute video progressed, her voice growing louder and her driving becoming noticeably erratic. "I left my phone over there last night," Jane explained breathlessly at the beginning of her Facebook Live. She described returning to a man's house, someone she claimed to have been intimate with previously, to retrieve her forgotten device. According to her agitated account, she had a key to his residence and let herself in without announcing her presence, expecting him to be alone or perhaps still asleep in the early morning hours.
It's definitely not safe. They're sick, they're nasty, and they're just out here to get bitches. And they're out here, man, that shit is real. That shit y'all see in ATL, that shit is so fucking real. And it's starting to come down. It's tumbling down to our city. They're taking over. Everybody needs to check their nigga out straight up, because these niggas are playing like they this and that and got the keys to the city and all this and that. And they under the sheets and the covers. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I've been super traumatized today about some niggas once again, because I had to witness some shit that I didn't come to see or nothing like that, and I don't appreciate it either. Because you know what? If you get down like that, nigga, you need to let motherfuckers know. You don't just do that kind of shit and just think it's okay. And then you was looking at me like you was going to do something to me. Bitch, I'm out of here.
To get to the bottom of a shooting and a violent car crash that killed a woman there on the scene.
It happened this morning at 30th and Lafayette. That's on the northwest side of Indianapolis.
Our crime beat reporter Steve Jefferson has been there all day long talking to witnesses there. He also has the surveillance video showing exactly what happened this morning. Steve?
Police believe this all started with gunfire 2 blocks north of this intersection. They are looking at video in this case as part of the investigation. This video shows the violent crash Tuesday morning involving a shooting victim on Indy's northwest side. You can see a driver speeding down Lafayette Road before slamming into another driver waiting in the turn lane.
It spun it at least 3 times and it hit the Camaro. I mean, it hit the Altima. So when he gets out the car in one piece, which I was very surprised, he runs over to the Camaro to make sure she was all right.
Inside the car, officers found a woman who had been shot prior to crashing.
We have one confirmed adult female who has been shot. She was transported to the hospital, and she succumbed to her injuries there and passed away at the hospital.
Paramedics transported a man from another car in serious condition. Witnesses who saw it all told us they're sick and tired of Indy's violent crime wave.
We need to stop it and go back to days when people took care of each other, watched over each other.
People who recognize the shooting victim's car believe a controversial social media post is all to blame.
They show different things. They put different things on there that should not be on social media.
Crime Lab workers will help piece together all of the evidence as homicide investigators put together what led to the deadly shooting and crash. On the Crime Beat, I'm Steve Jefferson.
Steve, thank you. Meanwhile, tonight, Metro Police have not made any arrests or released any information about possible suspects in that case. Once they get that information to us, we'll, of course, pass it along to you.
What Jane claimed to have witnessed upon entering sent her into a visible state of shock. I walked in and caught him with another man, she told her growing audience, her voice alternating between disbelief and disgust. She described specific sexual acts in graphic detail, using homophobic slurs throughout her description. According to Jane, when the men realized she was present, they reacted with panic and anger. They chased me out of there, she recounted, the camera shaking as she drove away from the location. They were running after me with no clothes on. I'm scarred for life. Jane repeatedly emphasized feeling traumatized by what she had witnessed, though her emotional response quickly shifted from shock to opportunistic anger. Within minutes of starting the broadcast, her narrative transformed from someone who had accidentally witnessed a private moment to someone who saw financial potential in the information she now possessed. The camera captured her face cycling through emotions, shock, disgust, fear, and finally, a calculating resolve. I got something on him now, she told viewers, and he's going to pay me to keep quiet about it. This pivotal moment marked the transition from witness to extortionist, a decision that would have fatal consequences within hours. The 17-minute video, which Facebook later removed, but not before it had been downloaded and reshared across multiple platforms, showed Jane driving erratically through Indianapolis while formulating her extortion plan in real time. The camera captured her face in close-up as she addressed both her growing audience and, indirectly, the man she was threatening. I want $5,000 by the end of the day, she stated approximately 6 minutes into the broadcast, looking directly into the camera. Cash at me the money, or I'm telling everybody. She repeated the man's full name multiple times, described his workplace, and threatened to contact his family members individually. The comments section filled with reactions, some viewers encouraging her, others warning her to stop, and many expressing shock at the public nature of her threats. Around the 9-minute mark, Jane's tone shifted from vengeful to fearful. They were so mad when they saw me, she said, repeatedly checking her rearview mirror. I think they might be following me. She never clarified whether she had actually seen a vehicle behind her or was expressing a more general fear of retaliation. This paranoia escalated throughout the remainder of the video, culminating in her most haunting statement, "If I die, let them people know how they killed me." In the final minutes of the broadcast, Jane directly addressed the man again, providing her Cash App username and setting a 5 p.m. deadline for payment. $5,000 to keep your secret, she said, her voice now calm and deliberate. That's a bargain considering what this would do to your life. The video ended abruptly with Jane pulling into a gas station, promising viewers she would be back on later to update them on whether she received the money. She never went live again. At this point in our story, I want you to pause and consider the ethical crossroads Jane faced that morning. We've all discovered information we weren't meant to know, perhaps not as dramatic as Jane's discovery, but secrets nonetheless. What responsibility do we have when we accidentally learn something private about another person? Where's the line between sharing truth and violating privacy? If you're finding this case as thought-provoking as I am, Take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories. Your engagement helps us continue exploring these complex human stories that contain valuable lessons for us all. In the comments below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been in a situation where you discovered something private about someone else? How did you handle it? Without sharing specific details that could harm others, what ethical principles guided your decision? Your insights might help someone else navigate a difficult situation with more wisdom and compassion. The digital trail Jane left behind allows us to reconstruct the final hours between her Facebook Live ending at 8:52 a.m. and the fatal shooting at approximately 9:30 a.m. Security cameras captured her yellow Camaro at a Starbucks drive-thru at 9:05 a.m., where she appeared to be making phone calls while waiting for her order. Her cell phone records show 7 outgoing calls during this period, 5 to the man she had exposed, all unanswered, and 2 to a female friend who later told police Jane sounded hyped up and scared at the same time. According to this friend, Jane claimed she had received threatening text messages warning her to watch her back and keep her mouth shut. Police never recovered these alleged messages, raising questions about whether Jane's fear was based on actual threats or anticipated retaliation. The friend advised Jane to go to the police, but Jane reportedly responded, "It's too late for that. I already put it all online." Between 9:15 a.m. and 9:25 a.m., Jane's movements become less clear. Her vehicle was spotted by traffic cameras heading north on Meridian Street, then west toward Lafayette Road. A gas station attendant reported seeing the yellow Camaro parked briefly near the pumps without anyone getting out, suggesting Jane might have been watching for someone following her or perhaps contemplating her next move. Reconstructing the exact sequence of the shooting required investigators to combine witness statements, traffic camera footage, and forensic evidence. At approximately 9:28 a.m., Jane's Camaro was traveling northbound on Lafayette Road. 3 separate witnesses reported seeing a dark-colored sedan, possibly a Dodge Charger or similar model, pull alongside her vehicle near the intersection with West 28th Street. What happened next occurred in a matter of seconds. The driver's side window of the sedan lowered, and multiple gunshots rang out. Evidence later confirmed that 5 shots were fired from a 9mm handgun, with 3 striking the driver's side of Jane's Camaro. 1 bullet penetrated the window, striking Jane in the upper left shoulder, while another entered through the door and hit her in the side. Despite her injuries, Jane managed to accelerate the Camaro to between 90 and 100 miles per hour, likely in a desperate attempt to escape her attacker. Security footage from a nearby business shows the dark sedan falling back as the Camaro sped forward, suggesting the shooter did not pursue after firing. Approximately 20 seconds later, Jane's vehicle ran a red light at the Lafayette Road and West 30th Street intersection, colliding first with the silver Honda Civic crossing from the east, then careening into a delivery truck and 2 additional vehicles. The impact deployed all airbags in the Camaro, but Jane, already weakened from blood loss due to the gunshot wounds, suffered catastrophic injuries in the crash. The driver of the Honda Civic, 53-year-old Michael Carson, sustained a broken pelvis and internal bleeding, while 3 others involved suffered minor to moderate injuries. First responders arrived after the collision, finding Jane unconscious, but with a faint pulse. Paramedics performed emergency procedures at the scene before rushing her to Ashkenazi Hospital's Level 1 Trauma Center. Despite receiving multiple blood transfusions and undergoing emergency surgery, Jane Waughfield was pronounced dead at 11:47 a.m. after her Facebook Live broadcast ended. As police secured the crash scene, word of Jane's shooting began spreading through social media channels, amplified by those who had witnessed her earlier broadcast. By early afternoon, the intersection had drawn dozens of onlookers, some filming for their own social media accounts, creating challenges for investigators attempting to process the complex crime scene. Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department issued a brief statement confirming a fatal shooting and vehicle collision, but withheld the victim's identity pending family notification. However, Jane's distinctive yellow Camaro, visible in news helicopter footage, had already led many online to connect the crash victim to the viral Facebook Live personality from earlier that morning. Within hours, Hashtag Jane Waughfield was trending locally on Twitter, with users sharing clips of her final broadcast alongside speculation about who might have wanted her dead. By noon on February 18th, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department had established two separate but connected crime scenes: the crash site at Lafayette Road and West 30th Street, and a quarter-mile stretch of Lafayette Road where shell casings indicated the shooting had occurred. Detective Sergeant Melissa Kennedy addressed reporters at a 4 p.m. press conference, describing the incident as directed and isolated, emphasizing that the public was not at risk from a random shooter. "We believe the victim was specifically targeted," Kennedy stated, carefully avoiding any mention of the Facebook Live video that had already been viewed by thousands. When pressed by reporters about potential motives, she acknowledged only that investigators were aware of social media content that may be relevant to the case, but declined to elaborate further. Behind the scenes, officers conducted door-to-door canvassing along Lafayette Road, collecting security footage from 12 businesses and interviewing 27 witnesses. Forensic teams recovered 5 shell casings, all from the same weapon, and processed Jane's phone, which had survived the crash intact. The most significant challenge investigators faced was establishing a direct connection between the morning's broadcast and the shooting less than an hour later. The timing strongly suggests a relationship, a department source later revealed, but proving who was behind the wheel of that sedan required more than just circumstantial evidence. The case was assigned to the department's homicide unit, with 4 detectives working full-time on the investigation. Local Indianapolis news stations covered the story extensively, with all 4 major affiliates leading their evening broadcasts with the shooting and crash. However, the coverage revealed a notable editorial dilemma: how to report on a crime potentially motivated by a victim's own controversial actions. Most stations referenced the Facebook Live video only in general terms, describing it as containing threats without detailing the homophobic content or extortion attempt. In contrast to the measured approach of traditional media, social media platforms exploded with unfiltered discussion. The hashtag Jane Waughfield generated over 30,000 posts within 24 hours, with users sharing clips, screenshots, and increasingly wild speculation about potential suspects. The full 17-minute video, though removed from Facebook, reappeared on YouTube and Twitter multiple times, despite platform efforts to remove it. National media outlets largely ignored the story, with only brief mentions on CNN's Crime Ticker and a short segment on one true crime podcast. This limited coverage sparked debate about which victims received national attention and why. Some commentators suggested the lack of coverage stemmed from the complicated nature of the case. Jane was simultaneously victim of a homicide and perpetrator of attempted extortion and public humiliation. "The media doesn't know how to frame this story," noted media ethics professor Dr. Elaine Winters. "It doesn't fit neatly into our usual victim narratives, which makes outlets hesitant to cover it extensively." The investigation faced significant hurdles from the outset. The dark sedan captured on security footage lacked clear license plate images, and the quality of video was insufficient to identify the driver or any passengers. Detectives interviewed the man Jane had exposed in her broadcast, who provided an alibi placing him at work during the time of the shooting, an alibi later confirmed by both co-workers and electronic badge access records. Digital evidence presented its own complexities. While Jane's phone contained text messages suggesting she felt threatened, none explicitly mentioned the Facebook Live video or contained direct threats. The department's cyber unit attempted to trace anonymous accounts that had commented on her broadcast with threatening language, but these efforts led to dead ends through VPNs and temporary accounts. As of today, more than 3 years after Jane Waufield's death, the case remains officially open but inactive. No arrests have been made, and police have not named any suspects publicly. The investigation file, now exceeding 400 pages, contains dozens of interviews and forensic reports, but lacks the crucial evidence needed to bring charges. "Sometimes we know what happened but can't prove who did it," explained former Indianapolis homicide detective James Rutherford, who was not involved in the case. "Other times, the person responsible isn't who we initially suspected." Without a witness willing to come forward or physical evidence connecting a specific individual to the crime scene, cases like this can remain unsolved indefinitely. The digital aftermath of Jane Waughtfield's death revealed deeply divided public opinions. On Facebook and Twitter, comment sections became battlegrounds where users debated the ethics of her actions versus the horrific response they potentially triggered. Many condemned Jane's homophobic language and extortion attempt while simultaneously denouncing the violence that took her life. Two wrongs don't make a right, but one wrong doesn't justify another, wrote one commenter in a thread that garnered thousands of interactions. LGBTQ plus advocacy groups in Indianapolis issued statements emphasizing the dangers of outing individuals against their will. Forcing someone out of the closet can have devastating consequences for their mental health, employment, family relationships, and physical safety, noted Indie Pride in their public response. This tragedy highlights why outing is considered an act of violence in itself, even as we condemn the actual violence that followed. Ethical discussions extended beyond the specific case to broader questions about moral responsibility in the digital age. Several online forums hosted nuanced conversations about the boundaries between free speech and harmful disclosure. Jane had the right to tell her own story about what she experienced, argued one popular post, but not to weaponize someone else's sexuality for financial gain. Others countered that regardless of her actions, nothing justified the deadly response, creating a complex moral landscape with no clear consensus. Jane's case quickly became a cautionary tale about privacy vulnerabilities in an era where anyone can broadcast to thousands with a single tap. Digital ethics experts pointed to the incident as evidence of how social media has outpaced our collective understanding of its potential consequences.
At 5 o'clock, Metro Police are asking for your help in their investigation of a morning crash and shooting that left one person dead, 2 people in the hospital, and 4 cars damaged.
Our TV6's Cameron Riddle is live at 30th Street and Lafayette Road where the crash happened with what we are learning tonight. Cameron.
Well, good evening. Late this afternoon, we have learned that police are now asking for the public's help in putting the pieces back together after one woman was killed and a man was injured after what ended in a crash here at 30th and Lafayette Road, but may have started as a shooting. IMPD officers were actually in the area when this all began, and they tell us they actually heard multiple gunshots and then the crash. Take a look at some of this video that we are showing you right now. It may be hard to look at, but this is what kept the intersection closed and buzzing with police officers for at least 6 hours. Police tell us 4 cars in total were involved, and the 2 people injured were both taken to the hospital. IMPD says that unidentified male was taken to the hospital in serious condition. The woman was also transported to the hospital with a gunshot wound.
20 years ago, this conflict might have remained private or limited to a small community, noted technology ethicist Dr. Marcus Chun. Today, a 17-minute video can create irreversible damage and potentially deadly repercussions. The incident highlighted the real-world violence that can stem from online conflicts. In the year following Jane's death, the Indianapolis Police Department created a specialized unit focused on monitoring social media disputes with potential to escalate into physical confrontations. Their data revealed an alarming trend, a 34% increase in violent incidents directly connected to social media conflicts between 2019 and 2021. Public shaming, once limited by geographic and social boundaries, now spreads at the speed of fiber optic networks. Several universities incorporated Jane's case into media ethics curricula, using it to illustrate the complex power dynamics of public exposure. When we broadcast someone else's secrets, we're making a unilateral decision about information that doesn't solely belong to us, explained communications professor Dr. Layla Washington. That decision has consequences not just for them, but potentially for ourselves and innocent bystanders. Jane Waughtfield's memorial service, held 1 week after her death, drew a modest gathering of family and friends who remembered her for more than just her final controversial act. Jane was outspoken and flawed, like all of us, her cousin remarked during the service. But she was also generous, funny, and fiercely loyal to those she loved. No public memorial marks the site of her death, and her social media accounts were eventually removed at her family's request. Those who knew Jane personally speak of the complexity lost in the public narrative, A woman reduced to 17 minutes of poor judgment rather than 40 years of life. Her case lives on primarily in academic discussions and as a reference point in conversations about digital ethics, a legacy far different from what she might have imagined for herself. Jane Waughtfield's tragic end underscores the profound ethical and safety concerns surrounding the act of outing someone against their will. Revealing another person's sexuality without consent can trigger consequences ranging from psychological trauma to job loss, family rejection, and as this case demonstrates, potentially violent retaliation. Mental health professionals report that individuals who are forcibly outed experience rates of depression and suicidal ideation 3 to 4 times higher than those who disclose their identity on their own terms and timeline. Beyond the ethical considerations, Jane's actions crossed into criminal territory when she demanded payment to maintain silence. Extortion, requesting money under threat of exposing damaging information, is a felony in all 50 states, carrying potential prison sentences of 1 to 20 years. Had Jane survived, she likely would have faced serious criminal charges herself. The legal system views such threats as a form of coercion that undermines personal autonomy and social trust, regardless of whether the threatened disclosure contains truthful information. Broadcasting personal conflicts through social media creates unique risks that didn't exist in previous generations. The instantaneous, permanent, and potentially viral nature of platforms like Facebook Live means that moments of anger or poor judgment can reach thousands of viewers before we've had time to reconsider our actions. This digital amplification transforms private disputes into public spectacles with unpredictable consequences. When confronted with sensitive information about others, digital safety experts recommend a simple framework: pause, reflect, and consider consequences. Ask yourself, is this my information to share? Who might be harmed? What might happen to me? For your own safety, avoid broadcasting your real-time location, especially during conflicts. If you witness concerning behavior online, many platforms offer reporting tools that can help de-escalate situations before they turn dangerous. Remember that digital conflicts can spill into physical reality with devastating speed. The perceived anonymity or distance of social media can create a false sense of security that vanishes when online threats manifest in real-world violence. If this story has impacted you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to LAT True Crime Stories. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these important cautionary tales that might prevent similar tragedies. In the comments below, I'd like to hear your thoughts on a question. Have you ever witnessed someone sharing information online that made you concerned for their safety? What advice would you give to someone considering exposing sensitive information about another person? Jane Waughtfield's story serves as a powerful reminder that the digital and physical worlds are not separate realms, but deeply interconnected spaces where our actions have real consequences. In 17 minutes of broadcasting, she made decisions that likely led to her death less than an hour later. A sobering testament to how quickly online conflicts can escalate. As we navigate an increasingly digital world, let's carry forward lessons from this tragedy. Respect others' privacy even when angry. Consider the potential consequences of our online actions. And remember that behind every social media profile is a real person with complex feelings, relationships, and boundaries deserving of respect. By approaching our digital interactions with empathy and restraint, we honor not just Jane's memory, but our shared responsibility to create safer online and offline communities for everyone.